All right, y'all, welcome. For those of you that have attended other sessions this morning or afternoon, depending on where you're joining in the world, how's it going? We would love to hear what has stuck out so far and what you're learning. I'm Kelsey. I am hosting the Impact stage today. And before we get started, I want to share a little bit more about KindSight. KindSight builds technology that helps nonprofits make a difference. For decades, KindSight has supported the education, healthcare, and nonprofit sectors with fundraising tools and the largest charitable giving database on the market. Now, a leader in fundraising intelligence, KindSight leverages real time data and emerging technologies to help thousands of organizations around the world identify and engage with donors and manage their campaigns at any scale. KindSight, with KindSight, teams get access to real-time donor intel and proactive insights with 1.5 billion wealth and philanthropic records in their proprietary database. So that is huge. You can book a demo to see the power of KindSight in action. And now, if you know him, you love him, and if you don't, you will. I'm excited to introduce Cherian Koshy. He is a leader in the social impact sector, transforming nonprofit operations and strategic development for over 25 years. He holds a whole bunch of things: the CFRE, the Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy, and a Series 65 license. Cherian brings unparalleled expertise to financial strategies and philanthropy. At KindSight, Cherian merges advanced technology with impactful strategy to develop solutions. So I want to give Cherian all the time in the world to walk through his session, Wired to Give, how responsible AI can unlock effortless generosity. And I'm going to turn it over to Cherian. I will be back on with Cherian to answer a few Q&A questions. You can add all of those to the chat and share any of those in the Q&A tab. Cherian, over to you.
And it thanks so much, Kelsey. It's great to see everyone here. And thanks everybody for being here. Wow, so many people here, and I hope you really enjoyed. If you were in this room, I really hope you enjoyed my friend Scott's presentation, and you are ready to have a policy around your AI strategy. That is really important. If you weren't in this room and you missed Scott's presentation, let me encourage you. That is your first place to start. Make sure that you watch that recording. It is essential, and Scott is an outstanding speaker and a great friend. So make sure that you watch that one. So if you are looking for another session, you might be in the wrong place. This is the session called Wired to Give: How Responsible AI Can Unlock Effortless Generosity. And I am no Jane Austen, but let me tell you in one sentence your beginning concept, and that is the idea that your donors are already wired to give. AI's job isn't to replace the heart of fundraising, it's to remove the friction that blocks generosity. So that's the whole talk in one line. And if you fall asleep for the next about 20 minutes, you got the gist of what we're going to talk about. I'm going to go into a little bit more depth, so I hope that you stay awake and that you pay attention to what we're going to talk about, but that is the gist of it. And what I worry about in the age of AI, in the age of artificiality, is that our systems get in the way. We're going to talk about how responsible AI can help us get out of our own way, ethically, transparently, and practically. Before we get into that, I'm sure you're all familiar with Simon Sinek and this idea of start with why. And what Simon talks about is how we often talk about the what, sometimes we talk about the how, and a lot of what we're going to talk about today in this session and throughout the summit is about the how. But today, for a couple of minutes, we're going to talk about the why. And in Simon's book, he talks about how the brain tends to focus around our how our brains understand the world around us and how that maps to the golden circle and around our rational brains and our emotional brains, and then what he calls the reptilian brains that drive our intrinsic motivations, that drive what we do. And there's not a whole lot of difference between how we think about the world around us and how our donors think about their own generosity. So what I want you to kind of really think through is how donors think about their own generosity, but I want you to even dial it back and even our own experiences and where does generosity come from? It turns out that dozens of studies indicate that generosity is hardwired into our brains. And I want to demonstrate that to you in one very, very quick video.
It's a strawberry. See the strawberry. Oh.
So these are pre-linguistic babies. They're able to say a couple of words. They are not shaped by culture. They're not shaped by rewards or anything really by social distinctions that would help them to understand what altruism, what empathy is, or truly what generosity is. And as I mentioned, dozens of studies indicate, in that example, that's the University of Wisconsin study, that's the first one on here. And you'll get the slides, so you'll be able to follow up on all of this. But this is the first study on altruistic food sharing. Actually, what they did was indicate that they asked parents to bring in their kids before snacks. So the kid in the video was really hungry and gave a strawberry to the scientist when he himself was hungry. And that's sort of they did this with 100 infants around 19 months. And what that study proved, and Warnikin and Tomasello's study indicated, as well as these other studies on the screen indicated, was that people, kids, babies, are generous to begin with, and they demonstrate empathy, generosity, altruism. And so, as I mentioned before, what we're reinforcing as a principle here is that generosity is a concept that we're born with. Now, that may be, as we grow up, as we see things happen in the world, we may dull that sensitivity. People may not be generous all throughout their lives. But when we find generous people out there in the world, our job is to get out of the way, to let them be their truest selves. And this is why a lot of the times when I talk all over the country, all over the world, what I get frustrated by when I'm a fundraiser, when I'm sitting on a board, when people say we just need to find the richest fill in the blank number of people, that really frustrates me because they may or may not be generous. They may have wealth, but if you've been a fundraiser for any period of time, you know that people who have wealth may not be generous. But generous people, regardless of their wealth, regardless of how much money they have an identity that will drive them to give. And so as you think about that, well, Simon's done great work. Simon Sinek has done great work around the brain function NRY. The generosity experience is actually a whole brain experience. And independent of which parts of the brain go into it, and we could talk about the brain science, how the ventral striatum is the reward portion of the brain, and the anterior cingulate cortex is the empathy and social connection part of the brain, and the prefrontal cortex that derives meaning and long-term value all work together. All of these parts of the brain help us to create our generosity identity. So here's what I want you to kind of understand about the generous brain. It's not about persuading people to be generous. It's about understanding that generous people are generous and how we can be more precise about the work that we're doing. We don't have to push harder. We need to reduce decision friction, increase relevance, and reinforce identity. And that's what I mean about precision. So, where does generosity die in the experience of fundraising? It dies with clunky, long forms, with off-target asks, with silence after gifts, and with trust that runs thin. Fixing these problems is not by any means glamorous, but it's actually where return on investment lives. Now, these numbers are not things that are new to many of us, but if you think about how 4 in 10 donors on average return, if Apple lost 60% of their customers in a given year, they'd be out of business. If Amazon lost 8 out of 10 of their first customers in a given year, that's what happens to, on average, donors in nonprofits. 2 of every 10 donors for their first time leave. That would be a 5-alarm fire in any company anywhere. So we fail our donors in their generosity identity because we lose that memory identity connection component, and we lose out on that second gift. So we need to think of generosity as the pre-installed operating system within our donors, and that technology and artificial intelligence is the interface by which they exercise their generosity systems. So if response rates are low, if interaction is low, if retention is low, it's not because people have stopped being generous. It's not because they don't care. It's not because they are apathetic. It's because there is a friction diagnosis that we need to engage with. And that's where AI can shine for us. It helps us speed up pattern recognition and personalization. And maybe sometimes you feel like this, that as a nonprofit, when the calendar year turns, or maybe you just crossed over a fiscal year in the last couple of months, and you are pushing up this barrier, this boulder, like the myth of Sisyphus. And every single year you are pushing your donors up a mountain like Sisyphus was cursed to do. And every year with every single donor, you are pushing them up the generosity experience, only to have that boulder fall down the mountain, and you have to push them up the mountain every single year again in order for them to make another gift. What if we could look at that differently, where AI can help us rethink that entire experience from a calendar year, fiscal year perspective, to help us understand the relationship between our organization and donors and generosity in service of human connection. So we're going to go deep into how AI can help us align with how generous brains already make decisions. And I want to go deep onto 3 levers, the 3 things that we can control. If people are not generous, we can't control that. But what are 3 things that we can control? And I call these 3 things fast feedback, identity-based relevance, and friction-free experiences. So friction-free experiences, fast feedback, and identity-based relevance are the things that we can control. And these what resolve the fundraising blind spot. They're the things that allow us to eliminate the dross of giving and allow us to engage with how generous brains want to integrate with their experience with the organization. So I'm going to give you an example of the first one, of the friction-free experience. So the problem is that donors want to make a gift, but they struggle to actually make that gift. And we may be, you know, those commercials about being nose blind to the smells in your home? We may be blind, if you will, to the experiences of friction in our giving experiences. So getting that feedback can be hard, and obtaining that starter feedback or that baseline audit or friction audit can be difficult. Now, I've done this. If you've been in one of my sessions before where I've done this, I'll pick up the phone and say, okay, who wants to give me the phone number? I'm gonna live make a gift of $20 to an organization, and we'll do that live. We can't do that here because we don't have enough time. But what I'm gonna show you is a ChatGPT prompt to make that experience happen in real time. So I'm gonna switch my screen, but I'm gonna also drop in the chat a Google Doc where you can copy the prompt itself. And as some of you know, I am a big fan. I'm a donor to the Iowa State Fair. I love the Iowa State Fair, and they are a great organization, but no organization is beyond a friction-free experience. So I say this with all kindness and love to an organization that I give to, because I just happen to give to this organization. I'm going to use this prompt for them in benefit to them. So if you're following along in the Google document, you'll see that I've just copy pasted this prompt, and I've asked it to say, you are a secret shopper for nonprofit donation journeys. The task is to audit the complete path to donate for the Iowa State Fair Blue Ribbon Foundation. Here's the website. And then there are a series of steps. I'm not going to read this out to you because you have access to the prompt itself. And what I did down here was I selected agent mode. So I selected agent mode, and I'm going to click go, and this is going to take a couple of minutes for it to do this. What it's going to do in agent mode is it's going to go through the process of opening up a window and searching for Iowa State Fair Foundation, and it's going to go through and actually try to make a donation. It's not going to actually do this, but it's going to try to make a donation on my behalf. And we're going to go back to my presentation, and in a few minutes, we're going to come back and see what it did. So I don't have to actually ask someone, a human, to do this. You should. It would be a great idea if you did this. But can I get some quick feedback on the friction experience by using AI? Absolutely. And this is a great way, in the time that we have together, to get some element of a friction audit. The second concept is fast feedback to our donors. So moments after making a gift decision, do you know what happens in a donor's brain? The number one thing that happens in a donor's brain is different than what happens in a purchaser's brain. If I go on Amazon, then the best thing that Amazon does is it tells you you've made a purchase, here's your receipt, and what you're going to get delivery by 5 p.m. today, by tomorrow with Prime shipping, or when that shipment is about to occur, you know what they do? They say your package is 10 stops away, and it gives you a map to say, here's how quickly that package will be there. That is tangible feedback to what you have done, so you know that you are getting that thing. We can't all do that. I get that. But there is confidence in what your money has purchased. So the challenge for donors is, did I do the right thing? Did my money go to do something? So there's the absence of this immediate reinforcement. How can we do something where pure automation, just a receipt that's impersonal and transactional, doesn't really accomplish anything, because they know that that could happen regardless. And one-to-one human connection is really difficult to scale. So can we do something with a ChatGPT or a Claude or a Copilot, whatever you use is fine, with something like a Zapier connection and something that is human, like a phone call or a handwritten note? I've shared with you in that Google document a way to do that marries the two. A Zapier connection that allows you to take a donation and to create something that is immediately focused, and that gives you a way to craft a human connection piece so that you're able to do both. And now you have, not immediate, but as quickly as possible, a way to create a connection. And so you do have something that's immediate that goes out and something that's human that occurs. So then the next piece is this identity-based relevance. A lot of times we send out appeals or stewardship, both before the donation occurs or after the donation occurs, that we feel is relevant, but we don't know that it's relevant to the donors because we don't know who they are or what they care about. But the more relevant that is to our donors, the more meaningful it is to them. And because it's meaningful to them, the more memorable it is to them. So we have to identify what is relevant to them. And in the document that I shared with you is a very simple way to create a survey. In last year's session, I talked about doing some messaging studies. So if you want to watch that, you can. But this is a simple way of doing something with like a free survey tool to be able to understand and categorize who your donors are. And then once you have these sort of broad categories, do they care about, I worked in an arts organization and we made two very broad categories: people who cared about arts education and people who cared about the access to the arts, cared about like high quality arts performances. And those two broad categories allowed us to then segment our appeals and segment our stewardship. And so in that document that I gave you, you can identify your segments and then create your appeals or create your segments based upon those categories. So doing the surveys and the segmentations together allows you to use those two prompts in a way that serve your donor base well. So how do we prioritize responsible AI in all of this? What you'll learn from Nathan and I later today with our reveal of the 2025 study on donor perceptions of AI is that the number one thing, again, I'll kind of reveal this to you, the number one thing, again, is to be transparent. AI needs to help us write or create content, but humans need to review that content or the process of what we do. We need to make sure that we're avoiding manipulation, so guiding but not coercing our donors or stakeholders or volunteers, and of absolutely making sure that we protect privacy. So the important piece is the what is the tech, but the why ultimately has to be the generosity of our donors so that we stay true to the reason why we exist. So imagine a world where donation pages engage donors and allow them to make the decision as quickly as they want to. Remember, when they show up on the page, they have a credit card ready and they are excited to make the gift. So the number one thing that we want to do is get out of their way and allow them to do what they have intended to do in that moment. We don't need to know their t-shirt size or their dog's favorite chew toy in that moment. We can get that information later. Allow them to do what their heart desires in that moment. And if we can do that, then they are satisfied and we can follow up with them and engage them with genuine stewardship and updates that feel like they were written by a friend. That's effortless generosity. So here's your practical playbook. Try these experiments this month. Audit your donation process. Here I'm going to show you what happened as a result of our process with the agent in just a moment. Automate those same-day thank you notes. Generate donor impact reports from the raw data. You have a prompt for doing just that. Remember that you don't need to master everything around AI. You don't need to learn a new language of prompt engineering. You don't need to be an AI expert. There are AI experts out there. Lean into those resources for you that are dealing with things like SOC 2 compliance and technical expertise and whatnot. You need to know who your donors are and to design for that experience that allows you to be the expert in what you are best at in the fundraising piece and in the DNA of your organization. But wait, there's more. I took the time to understand what it is to marry the science of who donors are with what I've been learning in AI and a couple of decades in fundraising. And this is not my musings. I want to be clear about this. This is based upon 200 peer-reviewed studies. And the book comes out from Wiley's publishing it, and it will come out in December. If this is your jam, I would love for you to consider going to the website, neurobook.com, and you can pre-order the book. You'll get instant access to the first 2 chapters of the book and get a couple of additional books for free. A book called Exactly What to Say, which is a New York Times bestseller, and will actually help you with exactly what to say to your donors. And a book by my friend Stephen Shattuck called Robots Make Bad Fundraisers. And there's a couple of other benefits to that as well. I want to warn you, though, this is not hacking a donor brain. This is not like tricks. This is not Jedi mind tricks. Those are actually the droids that they were looking for. This is about how to understand the science of why donors do what they do and how to align with what they do in a better, more ethical way, and how AI can help us do that. But ultimately, what I want to do is thank you for the work that you do. If one thing resonated, let it be this: donors are wired to give. So let us get out of their way and allow them to be their best selves. They have a vision of who they want to be, and it is a vision of a generous person. And we get the privilege, a sacred privilege, if you will, of being the facilitator of their next best person. So thank you for stewarding that journey for millions of people out there in the world. Thank you for taking on that mantle, and thanks for being here. So I encourage you as you go through the rest of your day and through tomorrow to continue to do that work. I do want to give you a shot to, it looks like it's going to keep going. So I'm gonna share with you the agent's still working, but I'll take a quick video of it. I'll post it on LinkedIn and Instagram or something like that. It is still working. It's taking a little bit longer, but that prompt has worked before. So I'll share the report with you in a little video so you can see it working as well. But thank you for being here. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I will be in a lounge right after this if you have additional questions as well. Thank you all. Have a great one.
And thank you so much. I think my intelligence level rises just like a little bit incrementally every time I speak with you or listen to you speak. But really love the framework for the 3 fundamentals: friction-free, fast feedback, identity-based relevance. Let's all remember those. And Cherian packed tons of great, really tangible resources for us throughout the session. So please check those out. The recordings will be available, and Cherian is going to make himself available right now in his lounge. KindSight is also offering the ultimate guide to data-led fundraising to all of the Fundraising AI Summit registrants. So you can find that. That will be available to you. This is a playbook offering an approach to fundraising that continues to build trust and human connection. So please check that out. And we'd love to hear what you thought about this session. So we want to know how you are enjoying the sessions that you're listening to. I saw a lot of praise for Cherian in the chat. You can also share that in this feedback form. We will pass on the love to him after this. And you can join Cherian, as we said, in his lounge. So if you were really excited to get to talk to Cherian a little bit more one-on-one, you can do so in the lounge with him. You can, take yourself off mute, put yourself on camera, and really have a conversation with him. From the reception area, you'll see lounge in the top navigation. Select that and find the table wired to give, and you can join Cherian right after this. This is the instructions for how to do that right here. All right, a little bit of an overview of what's coming up. So we have From Crisis to Catalyst happening on the Amplify stage with Kelly Hecht. On the innovation stage, we have Shaping the Future of Fundraising with AI. And on the impact stage right here, we have a conversation with Tim Lockey and Dan Kershaw. Both the Amplify and impact stages are available for a CFRE credit. And now please figure out where you're going next, where you would like to spend the rest of your day. You can check out all of the sessions. You can just click on the schedule in the upper right corner and you will see all the sessions coming up. Join any that are live. And thank you so much for being here and for sticking around to hear Cherian's awesome conversation. I will see many of you on the impact stage coming up.